Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Knuckles the Echidna here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of the forms of Pac-Man Party playthroughs of the forms of Nintendo Wii / Nintendo 3DS. So, previously, in how the fact the matter is though, we've actually done one board, or in this case the first board in the entire game, known as Greenwood Grove. And now today, this is the forms of how the fact that we're going to go through the second board of this game. And this one is actually going to be very interesting because we're going to be exploring through the desert, and that is the forms of Mirage Oasis. So, as you can see right there, I've managed to able to actually select those different players out of it this time around though. The computer opponents are going to be this time around though. I'm still going to be keeping Roger for the actual round for a little moment there. And the computer opponents I've managed to change into this time is the forms of these two ghosts, which are, at the moment, Clyde and Pinky. So even then, and as you can tell, the player I'm going to be using is Patra for this video, just because she may fit very well in this particular board itself. So if that's the case, then I should probably be able to be playing as her in this board for today. So if that's the case, then, well, it takes place in somewhat of the Egyptian setting. So anyways, though, so today was actually forms of, let's just say today was the 14th of September, in this case in 2018, and it looks like there's Pinky and Roger is going to be able to pick something out of this, and Roger managed to claim himself as castle, so kudos to him anyway. I mean, kudos to him. But even though, no, that's not the point we're going to be discussing about that. So, even though there's quite a lot of things I can able to actually discuss for this point, folks, because recently, that, you know how the fact that, originally that Mickey was meant to be originally said, about the fact the matter is, though, there won't be any Nintendo Direct during yesterday? It turns out, he was completely wrong about it, because recently, Nintendo Direct has recently did happen yesterday. So that means not only do we get ourselves, you know, the exact same information as was originally planned in the forms of during last week, but even then though, now we've actually got ourselves the more information due to a new release date of the Nintendo Direct, which is the forms of the 13th of September this year. Which reminds me, it almost exactly feels like the exact same day as the last year's counterpart, except the noticeable difference is the fact that it's on Thursday instead of Wednesday, unlike last year. So, yeah, it's very interesting to say the least, but at least I'm very grateful about it. So, and I guess I should probably explain more onto that as soon as we're able to actually just to see what's going on in these events here, even though Pinky has managed to able to move on for a little bit, able to move a certain amount of spaces, and so does Roger right there. And yeah, I do apologize for the actual delay for this upload because, well, you guys should probably know how the fact that most of these boards can take a little bit while to finish, and as a result, out of all the boards we're going to be run into in this particular game itself, this is by far the longest and possibly the biggest board in the entire game, especially in Special Course mode. One thing I forgot to mention is the fact that in order to actually unlock the special course and variations of most of those boards, is the fact that I'm pretty sure you need to able to play through this story mode first, before you're able to actually just to play through these special courses throughout. So, that's one thing I should probably point things out right away. So, anyways, we got a battle minigame right there, and of course I need to defend my castle, so if I manage to win this, I would able to actually get some of these cookies from everyone else. Oh no, not this minigame. Candy Crush. Take turns eating pieces of candy, but don't let the bomb hit the ground. The player with the highest score wins. So, it feels kind of luck-based, but it's more likely just a little bit more puzzles-based, or in this case, just a little bit more thinking memorization at the same time, because if you want to able to actually win this minigame no matter what though, you don't let the actual bomb just hit the ground. So, yeah, that's as far as I can usually see how this minigame is going to be played out in with it, but even then though, I'm just really not a big fan of this minigame, most notably because of how the fact that it can be very frustrating if you want to able to actually just to win this, but even then though, it can be very annoying at times though. So, yeah, let's get into the forms of the actual discussion of the forms of Nintendo Direct during it sometime in yesterday. recently, they've recently announced is the fact that the new Luigi's Mansion game did manage to recently announced just recently from the start. In fact, not only do we get ourselves the forms of, well, they did actually showcase off more information on Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS, which I'll get into more on that later. But for right now, we've actually got ourselves Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch. And I was really excited about that game, because even then, after the events of Luigi's Mansion 2 for the Nintendo 3DS for about almost 6 years ago at this point, and I was really hyped about that game for such a long amount of time, and even then though, I really can't wait until that particular game was gonna come out. Even especially notable, this is on the Nintendo Switch, so at least I'll be very appreciative about this kind of stuff, and that's how it should be done in the rest of the HD remake of Luigi's Mansion, the original game. But it's no longer going to be happening because obviously we've got a new fledged out Luigi's Mansion game at this point now, so yeah, about time. I'm guessing it's going to be releasing until next year, but I'm assuming it might actually show that off during the likes of at some point in E3 next year, which it might be a little bit, it might actually happen, but we'll never know until when the next year comes. So yeah, kind of like how it did in Kingdom Hearts 3. See, for Nintendo, although I think someone else did, or some toys already mentioned about Kingdom Hearts 3 recently, about the fact that Big Hero 6 World is finally confirmed for reals, for the real gameplay footage and all that stuff. I really like the idea they can able to actually just to take control of, you know, Baymax, to able to actually traverse for the actual, like, Tokyopolis. I think that's what the actual location takes place into, because obviously Big Hero 6 setting is the forms of Japan. I might actually gonna get the DVD version of the forms of Big Hero 6 as far as the actual film itself, because I think that's the reason why I decided to do that. But I'm not gonna do that just yet though, because I've still got plenty of time for the actual updated video coming up soon, so but even then we'll wait until we're able to see how this will turn out, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to Luigi's Mansion 3. I might actually go ahead and say now that, at some point next year, when the Luigi's Mansion 3 will be on its way, I think we might actually go ahead and do our Let's Play of Luigi's Mansion 2 at some point on the 3DS. But even then, we're trying to figure this one out, so we're trying to see what happens there. And of course, we have a new minigame right here, and yeah, it's all about food. Food Shuffle. Eat dishes placed on top of the rotating table. Score with every mouthful. Watch out for bombs. So basically just press the A button at the right time, and then you would able to actually gather as many food as you can. So, but even then, if you accidentally just ate the bombs, you'll be temporarily stunned. See, even then, and also you lose your points here and there as well. So just keep that in mind, and you have to watch over for that. So yeah, that's all I can really just trying to say about this for this throughout. And I really don't know how the fact that in Luigi's Mansion 3, in the forms of Nintendo Switch, I'm assuming the actual game was going to be taking will be able to take place in somewhere of the higher building, or possibly during the likes of the hotel, which I think this might be a little bit more different than the likes of traditional mansions in the forms of, like, well, one mansion to be more specifically in the original Luigi's Mansion game, and a multitude of mansions in Luigi's Mansion 2, or in this case, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. And now we're gonna get ourselves the forms of somewhat of a hotel setting in, obviously, Luigi's Mansion 3, which kind of reminds me of the forms of Hotel Transylvania series, but that's not the point. So anyways though, let's go ahead and get ourselves, might as well go for 6 roughly. There we go, 6, so that way I can able to get even more castles as a result. So, hopefully everything else will be doubly checking here, so yeah, that's all that gathers. So, yeah, and after that, for the forms of the reveal of Luigi's Mansion 3, which, you know, really looking forward to that game, along with Kingdom Hearts 3, and especially with other titles coming up next year. And also, they're still able to actually highlight the 3DS stuff, which, come on, 3DS is not going to be dying just yet. Which, even then, I could appreciate about the fact that because of the new Nintendo 2DS was a thing now, but even then, no, that's besides the point right for this point. Oh, sorry, Pinky, you'll actually lose your cookies. And can Roger do the same thing from in this particular unfortunate, you know, tent here, right here? Of course, he loses his cookies as well, so too bad for them too. So, yeah, with the 3DS highlights, first of all, they actually did reveal another port to the forms of, like, something's related to a yarn filtered, or in this case, to be more accurately, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, which at first I thought they might be thinking how the fact that Piglet is the only one he was still going to be carrying on doing that game. Well, it might be an opportunity because of how the fact that the 3DS version of Kirby's Epic Yarn, or in this case, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, kind of a mouthful with the actual name, by the way. Although, before I get into anything else, here's a new minigame. And we have to deal with the actual snakes. Cobra, Charmer. Play a melody to grow your snake. Press the indicated buttons and tilt the Wii Remote as shown. The first player to the flags wins. So, press A1 or 2 to play music, and you can also shake the Wii Remote while you're shaking the Wii Remote as well. So, yeah, you can do 4 things all in one go. I'm assuming if you ever play this on the 3DS version of this minigame, you'll basically get out to use the touchscreen functionality. So even then, that you have to pull out the stylus, and you can able to actually just press one of those buttons until you're able to do so. This minigame kind of reminds me of the forms of that one particular minigame from, let's just say, the forms of Rayman Raving Rabbids 2 for the Nintendo Wii, because that game also utilizes the forms of these control types like this. But, except the fact that in this particular minigame it's all about racing towards the flags, whilst in the forms of Rayman Raving Rabbids 2, it just basically feels like score-based system. So, that's one thing I should probably point out right away though, so keep that in mind. So yes, back to what I was saying, but in forms of Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. Now the fact of the matter is though, because it kind of surprised me, because even then though, back in about a year ago, that good film managed to able to actually recently released Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World for the 3DS, which is basically the exact same game as the Wii U version, but you can actually just manage to play Poochie levels, and you still play the exact same game as the Wii U version, but some little tiny extras they added in. And I believe that could be the same applies for Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, which I believe that game will about to be coming out on the 3DS until next year as well. So, I don't know when it's going to be exactly, but even then though, it might be sometime at 2019 roughly. So, that's one thing I should probably notice that. So, like, even then, as far as Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, it's basically the exact same game as the Wii version, but I really can't guarantee about the fact that they don't have motion controls this time, and I could assume it might actually be something to do with buttons related this time around though, which I'm assuming that's what it is. And also, just like in Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World, it does have some new features and all that stuff. Like, for instance, they added in the forms of these newer abilities and all that stuff, which if you manage to able to grab some enemies as projectiles, you can able to actually create a even bigger projectile and able to actually use that to toss that from even further distances. Of course, we have this minigame right here, which I'm assuming we've already played this before, so there's no need to able to get into this kinds of stuff like this. So yeah, I'm actually going to be looking forward to able to getting that game again, but this time on the 3DS, because, well, I feel like playing on the 3DS, I haven't really played that much on my 3DS, other than WarioWare Gold recently, but I really need to get back into the forms of more of those Nintendo 3DS titles before, well, the 3DS will about to be ending. So even then though, that we don't know exactly for sure if when this system is going to officially end, because every time when I was hoping that 3DS were about to be ending at some point, but guess what? It's still ongoing. It's still ongoing. But thankfully though, that particular highlights is very, very short by comparison to the past directs. So even then, next thing they actually did revealed with the forms of Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn is the fact that they've now actually include a difficult mode by the forms of the devilish mode. Think of like how it does it in the forms of like somewhat similar mechanic as the 3DS version of Donkey Kong Country Returns in the forms of Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D. You have a new mode, which is essentially the easy mode, and the original mode is just basically the Wii version, but, you know. Of course, we have, before I get into anything else, a new minigame, Crazy Curling. Slide the stones to the targets, you can bump other players' stones if needed. The player with the highest score after 3 throws wins. So, I'm not a big fan of this one though, because I will admit though right away, I'm pretty good at curling at some points in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games. Although, unlike in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, I will admit though right away, I think I should probably stick with Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games counterpart, because, well, one thing is pretty obvious with the noticeable differences here is the fact that, obviously, we don't have these little sweepers that manage to able to actually swipe out the forms of the actual floor or the ice floor itself. And one thing I should probably mention about this minigame also reminds me of the forms of Koopa Curl from Mario Party Advance, although except the fact that it's only 2 players on that particular minigame. Whilst in this one, it took absolute forever to finish up the minigame because, well, first of all, we only have like 4 players. And what makes it a little bit more of a opportunity for that, oh yeah, if you manage to use the power cookie in this minigame right there, you can actually create not only 1, but 4 of those stones entirely too. Although, I will admit though right away, I'm not very good at this minigame though, most notably because it's really hard to judge your distance at times, and there's no way you can able to actually just tilt the Wii Remote, or spin, or switch the Wii Remote in the corresponding directions, I don't think. But even then though, that's the only thing I must well consider with this fact, so. And of course the control settings feels almost exactly similar to how it does in Wii Sports Bowling a little bit, but except it's all in curling instead of bowling, so. Honestly, I think I kind of prefer when we do like a curling bowling, I mean that will be kind of cool, but unfortunately though, because of how the way that I'm assuming these computer players, I'm gonna be super doing, well, I don't know why I'm saying that, or in this case I would like to say, is doing very well on this particular minigame. So as a result, I'm pursuing that, so far anyway, I'm pursuing Pinky. She's gonna kick my butt at any second or two. Well, because I do need to worry about her, because if I manage to lose this minigame though, I will definitely gonna lose this castle no matter what. So that's won't able to be happening though, but even then I will guarantee by this, so. Alright, so, let's see. If I'm guessing correctly, I'm always gonna go last, because I can definitely tell that Pinky, that she will able to actually gain so much more aggressive until when she decides to able to actually just go ahead and get even more points. Well, at least as far as I'm usually concerned with this though, so. Yeah, that's what I can say about the forms of Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, other than that we actually have ourselves a Devilish mode, which is essentially the hard mode of the game, which kind of like how it did in the Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, they managed to introduce a new mode, which is essentially the easy mode of the game, and the original mode is considerably the original Wii version, and especially notable with the forms of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Switch. They revealed Funky Mode, which is essentially the easy mode of the game, and the original mode is considerably the original version of the Wii U installment. So that feels pretty much the same thing for Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, where you play the normal game. I'm presuming it actually retains the exact same mode as of how it does it on the original Wii version, and then the Devilish mode might be the hard mode of the game, because I could definitely see why they include that, just because a lot of people seem to complain about the challenge of the forms of Kirby's Epic Yarn in general, which still I won't able to agree with someone, because I will admit though, that particular game of Kirby's Epic Yarn is easily one of the most unique games on the Nintendo Wii system, so. And also they actually managed to feature some of these mini-games, much like in Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World, but except you can actually play as King Dedede and Meta Knight in some of those mini-games, which I really do appreciate about this stuff. But even then, what I found was kind of odd though is that why the 3DS gets so much more treatment than the original versions of the game, which I don't understand why. So anyways, here's the special event in the forms of Mirage Oasis, is the fact that every time when some players manage to come across into a little diggable hole, you can able to actually dig it up, and the more you dig them, then you would able to actually see what's gonna happen next. So, but it wasn't until a couple of turns later. So, and yeah, that's what I can say about Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. And much like in Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World, also the amiibo functionality might be still existent. But even then, don't know which one is it going to be tell us for this example yet, but we'll definitely find out until next year. So yeah, the next thing they did showcase in the forms of the 3DS highlights is the forms of, well, Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. As far as we've countless amount of times we actually already mentioned about this during the past few days. But even then though, that now not only do we get ourselves more gameplay footage of the forms of the actual game itself, but also more information about the forms of Bowser Jr.'s Journey, which feels pretty much unchanged than the likes of from before, ever since 6 months ago, and especially noticeable with the forms of like Bowser's Minions mode from Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga for the 3DS. And well, though this time around though, as far as I've realized about stuffing, is the fact that you can actually just manage to able to take like 2 captains at once this time. I'm guessing because of most people seem to able to actually forgive us about the forms of how with this luck-based factor in the forms of the 3DS version of Superstar Saga installments. So this is a pretty insane run-through with the forms of the 3DS so far, because much like in the Mario Party series, they only have like only 3 of them at the moment for the time. It all depends if the 3DS is live. We're eventually about to be ending, but so far the 3DS has gone through almost all 5 games, but usually only 4 of them right about now. I can definitely see why a lot of people, some usual development cycle usually just manage able to skip over Partners in Time installment on the 3DS, which I'm feeling quite disappointing about that, but I'm afraid that won't able to gonna make it happening, because as far as I'm aware, Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story for the 3DS might be the last Alpha Dream game to be released on that system, whilst they're going to be moving on to the Nintendo Switch for some time for the future. Maybe they're trying to announce that in the next E3 next year? Well, we don't know exactly for sure yet, because we still got a plethora of time to able to discuss more into that until a later time. So anyways, we got another battle game right there, and another one from my castle right there, so I really need to worry about this for this point. So yeah, I'm really looking forward until when it gets to that certain point with the actual release of Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story on the 3DS. So, anyways, new minigame, Bumper Jumper. Turn into a pinball and use the springs to jump high and collect fruits and treasure. The player with the highest score wins. So, think of like a 2D platforming type of minigame, except one thing I forgot to mention right away though is the fact that the jumping physics, even with the actual jumping momentum in this game, is not that perfect in my opinion. Just because of how the fact that you need to be extremely accurate with the forms of the, you know, trying to able to actually jump through everything, which it feels kind of problematic, I feel like, because sometimes I keep on bumping into a lot of bumpers so easily like this. And as a result though, yeah, these computer players always kicking my butt, because it always reminds me of the forms of that Pachinko machine, or in this case, the forms of that, since this environment usually takes place inside the pinball machine, so at least expecting some of these luck factor elements are still present, I think, so. Oh well, at least I did manage to lost that anyway though. I'm in 4th, which is really disappoints me. But oh well though, we'll have to leave it as it is though, so. Damn, I couldn't imagine if Pinky is going so much more aggressive when it comes to like, well, pretty much everything for the most part though. Oh, we got this minigame again. Okay, second time playing this. Except that I'm going last this time, so yeah, I'm not biggest fan of this one honestly, because it feels not too much boring out of it, but it's just how the fact of the matter is though, if you want to win the minigame so badly like this one for instance, you got to be sure you need to able to go through this stuff as soon as we can. Even it doesn't help how the fact that you need to able to wait for a certain amount of time until anything else happens. So yeah, not too crazy about this one honestly. It's just there, but I digress. So yeah, in addition to able to actually add something new information for Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey, they finally got ourselves a new release date of that particular remake, and it's going to be releasing until, let's just say, in the UK version it's going to say the 25th of January in 2019, because it's very obvious because, well, at least that game is going to be celebrating the 10th year anniversary of the original Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story game on the original Nintendo DS. I think I should probably get back into that game eventually though, once the 3DS version is going to be arriving, even though I technically already beaten in the game, but the only downside about it though is the fact that I haven't really leveled up everything though. I'm hoping that will happen until whenever I get the 3DS version of the game though. No way I can able to actually do a lot more level up grinding, especially when the badge points comes into play. And yeah, that's what I gather here for. And also that game still has the amiibo functionality, just like in Paper Jam Brothers, and especially for Mario Luigi Superstar Soccer and stuff, for the 3DS anyway. So yeah, really looking forward to able to replaying through Bowser's Inside Story again, but this time on the 3DS. One thing I should probably mention about this also is the fact that between Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey on the 3DS, and same applies for Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, both of those games are going to be only playable in 2D, which is a shame because even then, I'm considering that everyone rarely ever used the 3D, Superscopic 3D as much as the, well, any other 3DS games. Other than that, speaking of which, they did actually show us more information on the forms of, like, well, I don't know about that, but even then, that's how I think it is. So anyways, let's move on to the next discussion, next game we'd like to talk about for the Nintendo Direct buddy forms of recently yesterday. They show us more information upon the forms of Luigi's Mansion Remake on the 3DS. So, it might be a perfect opportunity because the reason why they're going to be releasing Luigi's Mansion, the original, on the 3DS to begin with, most notably because of the celebration of Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Nintendo Switch for next year, which, still, I'm really looking forward to that title. So, and the new information includes, with the forms of Luigi's Mansion Remake on the 3DS, which are the amiibo functionality, which at the moment they're actually working on only 3 amiibos, which the Boo amiibo allows you to able to actually see what the boos are in the bottom screen, and if you scan in the amiibo Toad, it can actually reveal your health every time you speak to him. And I believe finally the forms of Luigi, they can able to actually just manage to able to continue where you left off every time you get a game over. So it just makes the amiibo seems kind of worthless nowadays, even they're trying to able to actually make these games far too easy for casual players or something. Which I understand that, but that's just how it is for me though. And that's what I can think about it. I know there's the last one of the 3DS highlights, but I wasn't really too interested with the forms of Yokai Watch series, to be honest. But I think there's only 4 of these games has been recently announced on the 3DS. It's only for about 6 minutes in the beginning portion of it. Jeez, I think the majority of the actual Direct is going to be on Nintendo Switch, because at the moment, Nintendo Switch is doing super well with the forms of the actual selling points, especially with the actual games themselves, you name it. Alright, we got ourselves this minigame again here, Sky Climbers, which we've already played this before, but hopefully I can get my power cookie as much as I wanted to anyway. So, yeah, that was about it for the 3DS highlights of Nintendo Direct recently yesterday. So now let's talk about the forms of the Nintendo Switch stuff, the most recent console ever since about a year ago. In fact, it's almost 2 years at this point, when it gets to 2019 at some point. Unfortunately, though, there is no Zelda Skyward Sword HD anywhere, though, but I'm hoping it will happen until E3 next year, but I digress. So, but that will be discussion for the later time. But anyways, the first one they did revealed is the new updates for not only quite a few amounts of games, but quite a lot. Like, first one they did revealed is the forms of the new version update for Splatoon 2, which they're now going to be bringing up version 4. So, yeah, quite a lot of updates for Splatoon 2 at the moment. So, yeah, the examples I'll include, like, let's just say, then I don't know what I can exactly describe about this, because I've already looked upon Splatoon 2 for quite some time, because after all, the Powerpuff Girls has recently delayed the continuation of the actual Let's Play of Splatoon 1, but hopefully we'll get back into that game as soon as that updated video has now been finished. So, and speaking of such, we have a new minigame here. And this usually takes place in a baseball stadium, which is kind of odd, but still. Okay, dangerous diamonds. Catch the flying cookies before they hit the ground. Use dash to move quickly and stun players. The player with the most cookies wins. Alright, sounds pretty simple, but the thing is about this minigame though is that my depth perception, especially when you're trying to grab those cookies, is not that brilliant in my opinion, just because every time when I was trying to grab the cookie from the forms of way more further distance as you would think, Jesus Christ, computer players can get so damn aggressive, even they always know where the cookie's about to be landing, and you can able to actually shove them off whatever you wanted to, but it's just how the fact of the matter is though, is the fact that they're doing so well at this one, and as a result, oh Christ, I think Pinky's gonna catch up. In fact, let's go ahead and use the power cookie. I think that's what I'm gonna be most likely gonna do this though. Come on, just only about 1 second left. Ah! Come on! Ah! I lost by 1 cookie! You gotta be kidding me! Ah. You bitch sometimes. That sucks. I've lost by 1 cookie for now 1 split second or whatever. And then, as a result, yeah. But on the plus side though, I've got myself that particular castle at least, so I think that's the only good thing. But I've lost my another castle, so screw you, Pinky. Well, not Pinkie Pie though, just Pinky as the ghost. Oh well, I'm sure I can able to actually get ourselves my next castle during the next couple of turns, but again, it all depends really.